Oh my god. Hello, my name is Ariel, like the angel. Anyways, so this is the first episode of a new series I'm starting called Ask Ariel, where I respond to questions, comments, etc. So first of all, I want to acknowledge all of the lovely positive comments I got, particularly on my last video. I really appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. For instance, Soul of a Phoenix writes, "Good to hear from you. Thank you for your vulnerability and honesty. I respect that greatly. Your insight and ability to communicate non-concrete topics is incredible. This video helped put towards some of the dynamics and changes that I have gone through in the last year or so, not only in my own growth process, but with trying to understand and deal with what is happening in our country. Glad to have you back." Oh, thank you. I think it's been a difficult time for a lot of us, for a lot of reasons, but I mean, certainly, let's be honest, the fella who got elected president in America, it's not helping. Galiminiques Dice, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, writes that they're glad I am back. Oh, thank you. And Shell writes, "Good to see you again. Life is legit, and you gotta take care of yourself before you can make stuff for others." Oh, thank you. I'm trying to take care of myself, and hopefully the making stuff can also be part of the taking care of myself. Thank you everyone who wrote comments on the last video, and just to everyone who writes nice little positive comments like these. I really do appreciate it. You know, it's nice. It really makes me feel good that I'm doing something that people are responding to, that it's doing something. Also, I like this little probably if you see it totally out of context, it doesn't make any sense. Esper writes, "But to be fair, we cis people do seem fucking obsessed with genitals." This is to give people context. This is because in my last video, I referenced another video that I made unlisted called something along the lines of "Why are cis people so obsessed with genitals?" or something like that, which I made unlisted because I thought it was kind of obnoxious and a little too clickbaity, and I explained it in the last video why I made it unlisted. But this person, you know, is making a little goof on it. But to be fair, don't we all like a good genitalia every now and then? Anyways, just a few more like lovely positive comments. Another one from Galiminiques Dice. "Finding your channel made me have a little hope in the world and made me feel better. I was having a really bad day and this really made it better. Thank you for doing this." And that was it was like "Don't let your gender identity limit you" or something like that was the name of the video. Oh, I'm glad I could make your day better. More from Galiminiques Dice, because they wrote a lot of nice comments. "OMG, I love your voice, your style, the way you speak and express yourself. Thank you." And also, the first pronoun. Okay, so this was a question on pronouns. This was a comment on like the very first video I posted, which was just like, I think I called it Ariel Introduction, where I explained that I was genderqueer. I'm still genderqueer. I'm still non-binary. I think one of the pronouns I was really kind of trying to push for me was like V, ver, viz. And if you want to call me by those, that's fine. I've kind of switched though. I'm fine even with like she, her. A lot of times that's what people default to now, and I don't mind that. If someone asked, I would most likely say they, them, their now. That's kind of a default I go to. It's just a little easier and people don't have to figure out a new pronoun. I do totally respect people who do prefer to have like alternative like singular pronouns, because I mean I originally was very much into that. One of those I like, and I actually a lot of times if I'm kind of writing about myself in the third person for whatever reason, I will use V and V's. And that's actually it's a pronoun used by the performance artist, Justin Vivian Bond. How it's spelled is just the letter V, and it's like, I met V at the park. V is a really nice person. I went to the movies with V. I took care of V's dog. So basically it's like almost every circumstance it's V, and then the possessive form would be V apostrophe S. So V's. Like that. I think that's because it's kind of like a little bit of an easier one for people to figure out. And it's like V for Violet, because that's my name, Ariel Violet. But they, them, there is fine, and she, her is fine too. Just no he, him, his for me, and no it. I don't like that. These are two similar ones. One from Ken Birch, who writes, as a cis straight man, I'd say you expressed all of this far more gently and patiently than I would have in your place, or than many of us deserved. Thank you. I mean, I hope that I do try to be a patient person, and I'm glad that came across. Also, Bernie Sanders! Chocolate Brown writes, honestly, I'm sorry you have to deal with this ignorance. I'm not trans myself, but I've seen this type of ignorance before, and it must be tiring to put up with. XOXO. Aw, thank you. In all fairness, I mean, if you're talking about the comments, you know, it's not fun to get a bunch of, like, really nasty comments, and I would be lying if I said that they never get to me. I've definitely had it a lot easier than, both on YouTube and just in real life. I've had it a lot better than a lot of trans people have. For example, the college I went to, a lot of people were very understanding. Most people were very understanding, and I didn't really face that much bigotry there. On YouTube, I mean, you know, sure, I've gotten my share of nasty comments, but I mean, there's plenty of trans YouTubers that have gotten way worse. Thank you. I appreciate it. So moving on, a certain trend I noticed in a lot of comments was questions, people questioning, trying to figure out their sexuality. And this was particularly on my videos about pansexuality, bisexuality, polysexuality. For example, someone by the name of Michael Marks says, I'm still fresh into the LGBTQA+ community. I know I'm most comfortable identifying as gender neutral, and I know that I literally don't give a crap about gender, but am I polysexual or pansexual? I honestly do not care about genders. If me and the person I love are both happy together, we are in a healthy relationship, and we're comfortable with dating, and can try to be mature and honest, then boom, I'll happily be with them. But is that polysexual or pan? Ella Krotzer writes, I think you're pan. Yeah, I'd agree. I think that sounds probably like pansexual would be a label that would probably reflect what you're describing. Most people would, who understand what pansexuality is, would hear pansexual and they'd understand, oh, you'd be willing to date a person of any gender. I think that's probably a good term that would work for you. Yelenia Farah, hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I messed it up. This is new to me. I've always known I was attracted to females, but I wasn't allowed to due to religious upbringing, I think is what they meant. I am 6 years married to a heterosexual male and recently started to go to therapy to find myself. I did my own research, and even my therapist mentioned that polysexual is the best description. I don't believe I have a type of gender attraction, but more like a chemical attraction. Knowing there are people out there that won't laugh or shame me is good to hear. It sounds like you're starting to figure things out, and that's good. And there definitely are people who will understand you and won't laugh or shame you. Okay, this one's an interesting one. Let's dive in. IDK, if I'm pansexual or polysexual, I thought I was polysexual, but IDK, I was attracted to most genders except FTM, which is why I identified as polysexual, but I'm starting to get attracted to them now. So IDK, if I'm still polysexual, because now that would mean I'm attracted to all genders. I'm technically IDK, all the genders in life, which is why I identified as polysexual, so IDK, am I pansexual? Okay, well, first of all, generally speaking, most people would not consider FTM to be a separate gender in and of itself. FTM means it refers to trans men, and transgender men are they're men. Someone being a trans man is not its own gender. Trans men, FTM, people who are FTM, they're just men. They just were designated female at birth. What I want to be careful about is I don't really, I want to be careful with the whole like telling people, oh, you're this, you're that, in terms of sexuality and romantic attraction, etc. I mean, at the end of the day, the person who knows best who you're attracted to, what is you. And these terms, like whether it's pansexual, whether it's bisexual, whether it's polysexual, whether it's asexual, whether it's heterosexual, whether it's homosexual, whatever these terms you use, none of these terms are going to be perfect. At the end of the day, sexuality is and romantic attractions a little bit more complicated than these terms that we use to understand it. That doesn't mean that these terms aren't valid and that they don't describe real experiences. They don't reflect real attractions. Labels aren't going to always fit perfectly, and I think what you just need to reflect, what is it that I really want to communicate to the world? What do I really want to communicate to others? What do I want people to understand about my attractions, or who I'm attracted to, who I'm romantically interested in, who I'm sexually interested in. So pansexual is good if you really want to reiterate, I'm attracted to people of all genders, whether they're male, whether they're female, or whether they're non-binary. But technically, I don't know all the genders in life. Now, if you're talking about every single specific gender that someone could identify as, like gender fluid, gender queer, agender, bigender, pangender, and then there's all sorts of genders that someone could identify with, and I don't know them all. I would be the first to admit I don't know every single gender identity that term that people use, and there's a lot of overlap, and some people who. So, one person who might use the term agender might mean something very similar to what someone who, and might have a very similar experience to someone who identifies as genderqueer. Or they might not. It might be a very different understanding of gender. The commonality between all these genders is that these are all non-binary genders, meaning these are people who understand their gender to not be male or female, or not entirely male or female, or maybe kind of male, or maybe kind of female, or maybe, but we don't fit entirely into these, binary categories of gender. I refer to myself as pansexual, but I don't know every single gender that someone could identify with. But I think generally, if you're open to dating someone, who's non-binary, then I would probably go on a limb and say that probably referring to yourself as pansexual is probably pretty accurate. Anyways, we'll get more into gender identity a little bit later. Certain terms like gender fluid, gender queer, agender, I feel like generally get more recognition. That doesn't mean that they're more valid. Non-binary people are just trying to, we're just trying to figure out how to express our understanding of our gender, which is outside of the cis-normative understanding of gender. More on that later. Here's another one. I'm so confused if I'm bisexual or pansexual. I've always identified as bisexual, as in attracted to males and females, as well as some drag queens and gender fluid people. So that would be more pansexual, right? I actually answered this one. I wrote, well, the thing is, many people use the term bisexual to mean the same thing that pansexual means, and mean that they're attracted to people of all genders. So even if you're attracted to more than just men and women, you could use the term bisexual to describe your sexuality. So this is something that I think is very important, because there are non-binary people who are attracted to people of all genders. So they're attracted to men, women, and other non-binary people. But a lot of them do still use the term bisexual, and they mean the same thing that a lot of people who use the term pansexual mean. And I think that's fine. You can get, picky because like the etymology of the word bisexual, has term bi in it, which means two. So you can interpret it as, attracted to two genders. But I mean, the thing is, etymology isn't everything that makes up a word, and words evolve. So it could be very much, and I think that it already is kind of evolving, that people are kind of understanding bisexual to mean attracted to all genders. Now, some people do use the term bisexual, and they might mean I'm attracted to specifically two genders, or I'm only attracted to men and women. Some people might, but I'd go on a limb and say a lot of bisexual people probably would be open to the idea of dating a non-binary person. The advantage of bisexual is more people are aware of what bisexuality is. You can even use both. You can say I'm bisexual and pansexual. Why not? Llamasaurus Rex Allen. I'm so happy someone is finally talking about polysexuality. I'm polysexual, and everyone I've come across don't understand, and I always have to go into lengthy details for them to even know what I'm on about. I hope more people would talk about my sexuality and share it with other people. Oh, well, I'm glad I could be one of those people explaining it. I hope that people will be understanding in general and be patient with others when there's these gaps in understanding and when there's misunderstandings, when people misinterpret what you mean when you say you're bisexual, or when people misinterpret what you mean when you say polysexual, and that we can figure it out. And by the way, you don't owe it to anybody to give any kind of explanation. You don't have to say I'm pansexual. You don't have to say I'm bisexual. You don't have to say any of these. It's about what works for you. LGBTQ plus people are made to feel like when we aren't out about our sexuality, when we don't have a term to describe ourselves easily, we kind of feel like we're lying or that we're hiding something. Because if we don't say something, if I don't say I'm pansexual, or if I don't say I'm non-binary, then people will just make whatever assumption about me. They might assume that I'm queer, or they might assume something about me, but or they might just assume, oh, like this person's just straight. So just be patient with each other and understand that different people might mean different things when they use the certain words, and some people might mean the same thing. There might be someone that says I'm bisexual and one person that says they're pansexual, and then when they explain what they mean when they say that, they might say the exact same thing. And that's okay. That leads us to these last two things. They're kind of silly. They were kind of on the subject from people who are a little less open-minded. They need to change the name from pansexual to all sexual because they are attracted to all genders, aka even trans, you name it. And those people who call themselves asexual need to change their name to empty sexual. Okay, well, first of all, let me just stop right there. Why? I mean, look, if someone wants to call themselves empty sexual, I'm all for it. Or if someone wants to call themselves all sexual, fine. I mean, that's what pan means. That's pan as a prefix means all, so it means the same thing. I doubt that empty sexual would ever catch on. There's an implication there that asexual people are somehow lacking, and I don't think that's a good thing. A good idea to be spreading, because just because you don't find fulfillment from sex, or you choose not to have sex, or you just don't feel sexual attraction, that doesn't mean you're empty. And look, this maybe isn't really what this person means. This term you're coining, empty sexual, it kind of seems to imply, or potentially implies, that asexual people are lacking, that there's like an area of potential fulfillment that they're lacking in their lives. Sex isn't the only thing that people find fulfilling and that they can find fulfillment. And asexual people can find just as much fulfillment in their lives either without sex, or some asexual people choose to have sex. I mean, so I mean, I don't know. I don't think empty sexual is a good term, and I think asexual is a perfectly valid term. Asexual need to change their name to empty sexual because there is no sexual attraction to any gender, and they don't have a sex life. People wouldn't be so confused about them names, and we wouldn't have millions of people YouTubing about explaining what is pan and what is a bullshits. Some people just like complicating things. Seriously, people, life is already complicated enough. There are bigger issues happening in this world. Already make things simpler. Nobody is judging anyone, but stop with these confusing names. This is my favorite part of the comment. Peace and love heart. Okay, well, you see, like, you know, there's some stuff in there that seems kind of judgmental a little bit, but then when you end with peace and love, and then you add a little heart, then it's like, oh, all's forgiven. Like, if they had any bad intentions, why would they write peace and love and then write a heart at the end? I mean, you know, it just makes it all seem nicer. You know, I get it. I get that sometimes these names for sexuality can be, I guess, a bit intimidating. Honestly, if you don't understand a term, it's not the end of the world, and you can just ask someone. I think that what people like this kind of need to understand is that for a lot of our lives, for LGBTQ plus people, we have been made to feel like what we're feeling is not normal. Like what we're feeling is not okay. And so, particularly before terms like bisexual or pansexual were really more commonly used, and especially growing up. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I know for me, I didn't start to figure things out about my sexuality until I learned what the term bisexual was, which I learned from Wikipedia when I was looking up about Billy Joe Armstrong, the lead singer of Green Day. That's how I learned bisexual, because he's bisexual. And that was when things started to make sense for me, because I was kind of like, I kind of knew I had these feelings, and I felt guilty about them because I thought it was bad, because I was kind of taught that a little bit. But, you know, eventually I started to question that, but then I was still confused about my sexuality, because I was taught that it was either you were gay or you were straight. And then learning about bisexuality started to make things make sense. So I understand that there is an argument to be said for, like, you know, you don't need to make things so complicated with all these terms. But these terms can be very helpful for people, especially people who are trying to figure out their sexuality, and people who are confused about their sexuality. They can be helpful. I mean, especially when you're growing up in a society that often just doesn't acknowledge that these things exist, especially when you're young, when you're growing up. I know that I wasn't really given frankly, most of the time, like, there was some kind of, like, there was, like, the idea of gay people existing was sometimes brought up, but in a kind of way of, like, well, we can't really talk about this with kids. Even that wasn't really that much talked about when I was a kid. And when it was kind of a taboo topic. So it's helpful to have these terms. But again, I appreciate the peace and love with the heart. It definitely made the comment seem a lot more friendly. This next comment could really have used that. It really could have used a peace and love with a heart at the end. Why are you making this a thing? No boys who have sex with girls don't like boys, and the same thing goes, or the girls, and they are doing it for men. Only lesbians like women, only gay men like men. Straight people don't like the same gender. That's just a load of crap. You see, after that, after the straight people don't like the same gender, that's just a load of crap. Peace and love. Heart. You see, it's so much more friendly. They should have done the heart, and then I would have been much more open-minded. Anyways, I don't really have any commentary on that. I think people kind of know where this is going. I just thought it was funny. Anyways, next. I originally wanted to do this all in one video, but there were just too many comments that I wanted to respond to, so I've decided to split them up into a few different videos. Hopefully the next video will be out in a day or two. Thanks for watching.